Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the third and final stage of this incredibly profound, decentralized hero's journey. We've covered the departure, we've gone through the initiation, and now we arrive at the return. But, this isn't your standard story where the hero rides back into town to rule the kingdom. No, we're looking at an ecosystem where the community itself has to step into the light. Our main focus today is a pretty stark reality. Green Paradise isn't something you just stumble upon. It's something you have to build.
Now, before we get too deep into the weeds, we need to set the ground rules for how we're looking at this. This is a symbolic omikami interpretation. It's not a verified biography, right? We're exploring a deeply powerful mythological archetype here. The goal of this explainer is absolutely not to debate historical trivia or, prove some specific guy's identity. That misses the point entirely. The point is to understand the framework, the lore, and the really profound lessons about decentralization built right into it.
Okay, part 1. The mentor becomes a mirror. To really grasp this final stage, we have to completely rewire how we think about a return in a decentralized space. See, in a traditional corporate setup, or even most crypto projects, a return means the CEO or the founder comes back to take charge. They sit back down on the throne. But in the omigami interpretation, if the mentor just comes back as the boss, well, the community just looks up at them again. The whole experiment collapses back into a cult of personality. So the true decentralized return actually happens when the mentor disappears completely. The man fades and the lesson itself takes center stage. The archetype returns.
And it creates this incredibly beautiful metaphor. Ryoshi becomes less of a physical person pulling the strings and more of a mirror. When the community starts demanding answers, looking around for a leader to tell them what to do, they look into that mirror and just see their own reflection. They're forced to realize that the mentor refusing to return isn't a lack of meaning. It's actually protecting the meaning. The mentor might point to the door, sure, but he can't walk through it for you. Ultimately, you alone are responsible for the future.
Moving on to part 2, the experiment changes form. In classic myths, this is the magic flight phase, where cryptic signals show that the original experiment didn't die, it just evolved.
In this new mythological frame, omikami stands as the sun principle. We're talking about revelation, moral clarity, direction. It's literally the light that reveals what's real. Omikami isn't a mascot. It's the central light source guiding the ecosystem, not by barking centralized commands, but through an unwavering, quiet standard of moral clarity.
And right alongside that sun, you have Ryujin, the tide. This is the dragon current. It represents movement, trial, protection, and the circulation within the whole ecosystem. Ryujin is basically the threshold guardian. If the sun shows you the path, the tide is the rushing current you have to actively navigate to actually get anywhere.
It's honestly fascinating to watch how this lore organically transformed. Step 1, the dog became the sun. Step 2, the meme became a doctrine. Step 3, the cycle became an entire world. It's the metamorphosis of a simple idea into a massive, decentralized mythology full of trials, gates, and really deep meaning.
All right, part 3. The community rescues the vision. Now, usually the hero gets saved by some outside magical force, but in a decentralized journey, the script is totally flipped. Here, the vision itself is what needs saving.
Let's be real for a second. Waiting around for a savior achieves absolutely nothing. We are all Ryoshi isn't just some catchy marketing slogan. It's work. When the timeline goes completely silent, when the hype fades out, it's the community that has to step up and actively rescue the vision.
So what does that rescue actually look like on the ground? It's relentless, practical labor. It's the Kami army and the builders safely onboarding new people. It's explaining complex DeFi concepts so anyone can understand them. It's sharing receipts, verifying truths, creating memes that actually carry the culture forward, and writing the guides. It's practicing wisdom and unity out in the open.
Think of it like this. The mentor brought a fire. He didn't bring a finished, perfectly polished product. The ultimate scale of this entire ecosystem is sitting right in your hands. The community has to decide, does that initial spark stay a tiny campfire, or do we build it into a sun? Part 4, crossing the return threshold. Because eventually all this deep mythological insight has to cross back over into our regular, everyday reality.
Omikami isn't just abstract poetry. It demands the strict adoption of very tangible Web3 tools. You cross the threshold through self-custody. You cross it through deep DeFi literacy, by building a strict verification culture,
practicing safe wallet behavior, and sticking to builder discipline. The mythology has to act as our moral infrastructure, not just our marketing material.
Because at the end of the day, understanding this decentralized lore means literally nothing unless it radically transforms how you operate. The threshold is only crossed when the myth changes your behavior. Actually, scratch that. If you read the lore but still act recklessly, or if you're just sitting around waiting for someone else to build the tools, you haven't even approached the threshold.
Section 5, Master of Presence and Absence. As we get to the absolute peak of this journey, we have to define the creator's role without slipping into any illusion of centralized control.
It's the ultimate paradox of the mentor. He becomes a master of presence and absence. He wields influence without a throne. He gives direction without giving commands. He has a massive presence without ever showing a face, and he leaves a legacy without holding on to any ownership. The mentor leaves behind an absence, but it isn't empty. It's filled with a question that's large enough to forge a permanent community.
Which brings us to Section 6, Green Paradise Must Be Built. This is what true collective freedom looks like. A community that learns to live without a central father figure now has to build without asking for permission.
You really need to understand this core truth. Green paradise is not found. It is constructed. This promised world isn't some magical reward that drops from the sky, and it is definitely not a financial chart target. It's a structure built by the people who stayed when everything went quiet, built by the ones who chose receipts over the noise. It's built by people who understand that decentralization is only real when nobody comes to hold your hand.
And that brings us to the final, piercing question that the mentor's quiet absence forces every single one of us to answer. Were you here for Ryoshi, or are you willing to become Ryoshi?
The final Omikami interpretation of this decentralized journey plays out in 4 undeniable steps. First, the original spark willingly steps away into the mist, giving up the throne entirely. The creator becomes nobody.
In that intentional void, the responsibility ripples outward. The shadow leaves a light that touches everyone watching. Nobody becomes everybody.
You are no longer waiting to be saved. The collective is the protagonist now. The community becomes the hero.
The gate is wide open. The tools are firmly in your hands. The hero builds the world.